Welcome to Math 105. We are going to be doing your Bayes Theorem Lab today. So make sure you open up a new Excel sheet and create your cover page, however you normally title it, and have your cover page. And then make sure you're saving it as you go. Now sheet 2, I'm just going to label it as part 1. There. So problem 1 says Gamma Chemicals advertises its anabolic steroid detection test as being 95% effective at detecting steroid use, meaning that it will show a positive result on 95% of the anabolic steroid users. It also states that its test has a false positive rate of 6%, meaning that the probability of a non-user testing positive is 6%, estimating that 10% of athletes are using anabolic steroids. Enormous State University begins testing its football players. The quarterback tested positive, and it's promptly dropped from the team. He claims that he is not using anabolic steroids. Looking back at chapter 6.3 and or your Excel formula journals, we talked about creating one of these decision trees in one of your coin toss problems. So we're going to be using your decision tree first and using what we've known now about conditional probability in chapter 7.5. So we're going to be using A and not A to symbolize whether the individual has taken the anabolic steroid, and T for when the individual tests positive, and T and not T for when they have tested negative. The first branch is your unconditional event, so that would be right here. So whichever one is unconditional. And then the following will result in the conditional probability. Now the end result will be here where they simultaneously hand in hand finish at the very end. So part 1, create a decision tree. So in creating your decision tree, we have to make the decision. Which is more likely to come first, the testing positive or negative, or the use of steroid? Well, we have to have either used or not used your steroid first. So when we go to insert, we're going to insert, let's see, where is it here? Maybe illustrations, there we go. We'll click on Smart Art, down to Hierarchy, then over to this one, click OK. And you'll come up with something like this. Now we are doing the steroid detection test. So first, we either have to take the steroid or we don't. So A or not A. And I can click here or use the text, it doesn't matter. So we've either used the drug or we have not used the drug. Therefore, our next branch here, we then either test positive or negative. T for testing positive, or T not for testing negative. Here we just have T, but we need a third or a second branch that's symbolizing down here. So we're going to come up to, well, we're first going to tap on the A not. And when it says add shape, we're going to add shape below right there. There it comes up. Go. Now we need to create your last remaining branches that kind of just stem off from each, just to show that at the very end, this is what we have. So I'm going to click on T here, and I'm going to add shape below. And then let's see, down here, I'm going to do them for all of them. Shape below, and add shape below. Now here we can either use words or symbols. I can't quite remember if I was able to insert a symbol simultaneously. I'm pretty sure I can. So in this particular branch, you've taken the steroid and let's see, symbol, the and symbol here, and insert close, there we go. And I might actually go ahead and copy this symbol. So we have A and we've tested positive. On our next branch here, we have you've taken the steroid, and I'm going to copy in that symbol, or each time you want the symbol, you can come back here to add it, and then not T. So we tested negative. Here we have not A and T. So you did not take your steroid, and your test came up positive. So that's your false positive right there. Oops. And lastly, you did not take the steroid and you did not test positive. So you tested negative, in other words. So this is what our end result should be using your symbols here. Now in part 2, so this is part 1 where we created your decision tree. Now each branch here is going to signify a different probability. Keep in mind, this is your unconditional event. And then following, right, there was some prompt. They believed maybe we are taking some sort of drug or they don't. And therefore, we now have the condition that follows it. So part 2. So it says follow the template below to find the missing cells for D4, D5, and F4 through F7. Consult your 7.5 notes. And I just want to make sure, yep, here we go. So here, let's go ahead and just work on your template for a moment. I'll zoom in for a moment. Problem 1. So here, we have the probability of T given A. We have the probability of T given, T given not A. We have the probability of A. We have the probability of not A. We have the probability of not T given A. The probability of not T and not A. We have the probability of T, the probability of not T. And lastly here, we have the probability of A, and I'm going to see if I could just copy. Yep. So as long as I've copied my and symbol, again, if you don't have the and symbol, just go to symbol here, and then you're just going to click this one and then click insert. And then from there, I've just copied it because I knew I was going to be using it quite frequently. And from there, I'm just going to actually pull this down, and then I can make subtle changes. We don't want T. We don't want A. And this one, we don't want A. Lastly, here, we have the probability of now A, given that T has occurred. Okay, so here's your template. I might choose to do this all in Times New Roman. There we go. I like the look of that. There we go. And maybe if you want to, you can put these in bold. There we go. All right. So it says follow the template. So they've already placed these values in for us. So that was really nice just from the context before. So in this cell B4, we have 95%. That is, somebody has been taking steroids and therefore got tested positive. So they got caught in a sense. Now, this person was not taking steroids. However, they still were believed to have been taking a steroid. So they tested positive even though they did not take the drug. This is what we call that false positive. So we had 0.06. Right here, they said, okay, there was a 10% chance that somebody was taking the steroids. So we're doing that. And that is all from the above here that they've told us. So they said an estimate that 10% of the athletes are taking your anabolic steroids. The 6% are those who are doing that false positive. So they're saying that they didn't take the drug, but it's coming up as positive. And then 95% are testing positive because they have taken the drug, or so they've claimed. So it says determine the values for the 4 cells in column F. Oops, I'm a little ahead of ourselves. So in D4, D5, F4 through F7, we need to figure out the following. So here, if we have B7, right, we have a missing cell, right? Notice that these are actually the opposite of one another, right? So to find your opposite, we can do 1 minus and then negate what we wanted. So in our case, we're going to do that. We're going to leave these two alone for a moment. However, let's go ahead and fill these in based on your 7.5 notes. So if we know that these two branches here are in fact opposites, so we are taking the drug, we tested positive, and this one we're testing negative. So these are opposites. So we can say 1 minus, and then we're going to subtract this value here in B4. And we can do the same here. Whereas we did not take the drug, we did not take the drug. We tested negative, we tested positive. So those are opposite, 1 minus B5 here. And there you go. Now we're going to have to leave these cells alone just for a moment. And instead, now we have to fill in F4 through F7. Now, what we have done so far on your decision tree is we have found these counterparts. We know that this branch is the probability of A, so that was 10%. And the opposite, therefore, is not A, so they did not take the drug. We said that was going to be about 90%. Whereas here, these branches, these are your conditional probabilities here. This is not saying that this is the probability of T and not T. This is under the condition that first, this had to happen. You either took the drug or you didn't. So this branch here, A, so given that you've tested positive, given that you've taken your drug, you then tested positive. So that would be about 95%. So its opposite counterpart is going to be that 5% down here. You are taking the drug, but you tested negative. They missed you, okay? You got away with it, essentially. Whereas here, if you're not taking the drug, however, you then tested positive, that's your false positive here. So that branch here is going to be 6%. So the opposite, right, would be this branch right here. And that's all we've created. So now at the end, we need to tally up what are the likelihood that they now happen simultaneously. They have all been together, right, at the very end. So this is when we can find A and T. First A and then T. So therefore, A and T, we get to multiply these branches to get the end result. You took the drug and you tested positive. So that would be, you took the drug, A, and you're multiplying it to the condition that you took the drug and therefore you tested positive. The below is that you took the drug and you did not test positive as the result. So in this case, you still took the drug, that's A here, and you did not test positive. Therefore, you tested negative. Can you fill out the remaining? Well, in our case, this one, we did not test, or we did not take your drug. So now we're going to be working in B7. This is the probability of not A, not taking the drug, times. Now notice that these two columns, or these two cells, we're not taking the drug. And this one, we want to test positive. So that would be this column right here, B5. And then we repeat the action. We're not taking the drug and multiplying it to not taking the drug and testing negative right here. So those are all filled out. Now, when we want to figure out the probability of T and not T, what we're going to be using are not any of these cells over here, but these cells right here from F. We want to figure out, okay, anytime you tested positive for this, this test result for this drug. So it's equal to F4, and then again, F4 plus, and then again, for if you did not take the drug. Notice that the drug doesn't matter so much, but your testing positive result matters. And then again here, we don't really care about taking the drug or not, but we want to figure out all of the times where you tested negative. Therefore, we have F5, you tested negative, plus F7, again, you tested negative. Now, the final result is that you have now tested positive, right? And we want to know, okay, because you tested positive, what are the chances that you are indeed taking the drug? So we have equals. So when it comes to our counterpart for this equation, right? Well, we want to figure out your end result of them both occurring, T and A. and dividing that by all of the instances that T has occurred. We could do the same as well to say, okay, using your formula that we have talked about from previous results or our previous chapter 7.6, where we saw the example or the formula, we said we're taking the result that they happen simultaneously and divide it by one more time the result that they have happened simultaneously. Plus, and we get to add it to, again, another instance where they tested positive, because at the end, we want to know the chances of them actually testing positive. And you'll notice that those are the exact same expressions. Now, we don't need that many decimals. We can shorten that to about 4. Or if you want, you can change it into a percentage at the end. That's perfectly fine. So now part 3, we're going to be answering the following questions. And you can open up a new sheet if you want. Part 3, I might just open up a new sheet, insert my text box. So make sure we're answering this in college level sentence with context, all of the good things. A, how confident can we be that he, meaning the player, is not telling the truth? In other words, we want to know if he's not telling the truth here, the probability that we had just found. That is what it means. B is, what does cell F5 mean, and how did you find the result? C, what does cell D4 mean, and how did you find the result? And I'm not looking so much for like, oh, we added this plus this, therefore we got this answer. No, I want you to bring the context to it. That's what I mean by this college level sentence. Tell me why you did that. Okay? And that might be as easy as just going back and rewatching that little portion of the video to get why we're doing it. Now make sure that you are saving your sheet. Make sure that your layouts, perhaps you are narrowing your margins. If these are particularly long, maybe you do a different orientation, that sort of thing. I might just keep it as portrait though. Part 2, same thing. Maybe you want to change your margins. These aren't super lengthy problems, so you might not have to change your margins because they should all be fitting on the same page. But just in case, we'll do the same, keep it nice and even. You know, that's all fine. I may have expanded that just a smidge too far. There we go. Again, just make the adjustments that you want to. So I'm a huge Times New Roman person, and just like everything centered and neat, that sort of thing. So this is where you can make your adjustments. Times New. Anyway. Yep. There we go. And lastly, when I go to print, notice that I only am printing one sheet and I want my entire workbook. And you'll notice that by selecting that, everything will come up. Maybe I want to center this just a little bit more and maybe add some creative flair in the end. So all things that I would really appreciate, just add a little bit of color, context, that sort of stuff, and just really make it your own. And that could be just maybe writing out what these branches are talking about. So maybe extending this branch a little bit further and just telling me what they mean. Maybe you even put new little text boxes that kind of symbolize these things. So make it your own. Maybe you make this one actually a different layout in order to incorporate that. Landscape, make this a little bit fuller. Maybe you make this a lot bigger because you have more space, that sort of thing. And then kind of just change it by whatever design that you're feeling. So over here, design, change your colors maybe, right? Have fun with it. And then in the end, when you're done, I like to save mine as a PDF first before I print it. And there you go. That is our lab in a nutshell. Make sure you upload your lab video, not your lab video, your Excel sheet into your Canvas before you turn in your paper copy.